Do invisible wounds shape our relationship, our self-worth, maybe even our decision-making and other things as well? Well, I have some thoughts on that, and so does my next guest. She's the author of a new book called 7 Primal Wounds. And we're going to be discussing what those wounds are and how they impact us. Please say hello to Michaela Johnson, who flew in, yes, piloted in, maybe more accurately, I should say, because she is on a self-piloted book tour for this new book. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Diane. I'm very excited to be here, and it was quite the adventure to get here. So I'm glad it all worked out.
How many places are you going on this book tour, just out of curiosity?
We have about 35 stops. So in total, 35 states. It's a lot more stops than that. And we've already come about 3,600 nautical miles. So it's been quite the journey.
Oh my gosh. Now you're a pilot.
I'm a pilot. Yep.
You're a pilot. And you had a very unusual upbringing. And I'd like to look at that a minute before we get into your book.
Yeah, absolutely.
You grew up off the grid?
Yes, in desolation wilderness in a 27-foot fifth wheel with no running water and no electricity. We literally had a porta potty in the yard. And so at the time, I did not appreciate that upbringing. And it was well before #van life was very cool. And so, I was shaving my legs in ice melt creeks and things like that. My parents cringe hearing this story. They're like, no, that never happened. You're fine. But in hindsight, I really learned a lot about resiliency and grit and kind of how to show up gracefully even when things are really tough.
That's a great point you just made. I always like to remind people when they talk about their youth and all the things that they think were so horrible. I mean, I did not grow up off the grid, but we weren't allowed to watch television. Yeah. But the flip side of that is I became an avid reader.
Right.
So there's always I don't like to go in just dualities, but there are always benefits of whatever if you choose to find them.
Yeah, it's making lemonade out of lemons, right? And sometimes you just have to toss the whole batch out and go find some new fruit. But that's okay too. Yeah.
Or add more sugar.
Right. Or a little bit more sugar.
Okay, so 7 primal wounds.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting topic because the first time when I first read that, I thought 7 deadly sins.
Right.
Then I'm thinking, primal wounds. Where'd you come up with this? And what's your theory as to how we develop primal wounds?
Well, I started seeing patterns in the work I was doing with couples. So I started to notice every time they were fighting, there was a theme underneath. And I did grow up watching Sesame Street on occasion when we had power and electricity. And there's that you're looking for the one kid that's doing something different. And I started to see these patterns playing out in relationships. And I was very fascinated by it because it was almost like the scene from Charlie Brown where the parents, you hear them talking, going, wah, wah. Wah, wah. And it doesn't really matter what they're saying because underneath it, everything was the same. And there were these patterns emerging and I started to just get really curious. I was like, wait, slow that down. What was underneath that? Peel back that layer for me. Strip that onion back a little bit. What's in the center? And I kept probing my clients to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And they were all, well, I don't know. Hold on. Let me think about that. And once they started to dive down, they said, well, when she says that, I just feel like I'm not good enough. Aha, there it is. Okay, it's not good enough. And then I started to see these themes emerge, and there were about 7 of them. Actually, there were 10 when I started. But part of my doctoral research was really to pare it back and get very specific. And I just realized that there are these core beliefs and they start in childhood. So it doesn't mean you had terrible parents. It's like quite the contrary. It can be something very simple. So for example, a powerless wounder might have grown up in a family system where they had a sibling that was ill. And they couldn't help their sibling and they felt powerless. And then as a teenager, it becomes, well, I'm never going to be powerful. I'm never going to be empowered over my life. And then as an adult, we paradoxically pick people and situations that actually affirm the narrative. So we invite someone into our life that will remind us every day that we are not empowered over our relationship or our situation because it's paradoxically comfortable to us. We learned how to live with that narrative. And so then we carry it throughout our entire life. Now, one thing that I find really fascinating The people that have the incapable primal wound, which is like the unintelligent and not smart enough, they're like, hold my beer, watch how smart I am. And they will go start corporations that make billions of dollars. So there are ways that you can actually take the primal wound or the core belief and you can turn it into a superpower. And that's exactly what the book's about.
That's very interesting. How does someone identify their primal wounds?
Well,
Do you think when they read your book, something pops out and they say, oh, this is me?
100%. So what I started to identify first was that I could really figure out the primal wound by listening to the language that they were using when they were complaining and griping and my partner does this and then this happens. And I said, well, what do you usually fight? Well, we start to fight about blah, blah, blah. And I would hear these pre-activations playing out, like I'm a disappointment or I'm never chosen or I just can't seem to get anything right or I'm a failure, et cetera, et cetera. And as I started to hear the themes, I was like, oh, there's pre-activations that are these building up moments that lead to the big activation. And so I actually have a quiz online that people can take. It's kind of like a Myers-Briggs type quiz. It's 70 questions and they can go through and it weeds out based upon these pre-activations and the narrative, it's the ticker tape that's running through their head. And then their primal wound comes out at the end. Yeah. So it's really fascinating.
Now, do you think there are crossovers in personality traits?
I have yet. So on the back end, I can see the percentages of all the different wounds, and I have yet to see anybody that has tied. So there is always a predominant primal wound. Although when people hear the 7, they say, oh, I have all of them. And we can relate to all 7 on some level.
What are the 7?
Let's go through them. And it's always, it's always in the morning time when I'm just fresh on the coffee that I have to list them. So here we go. I'm going to use my fingers.
That's okay. I understand.
So I am insignificant. I am inadequate. I am damaged. I am incapable. I am undeserving. I am powerless. And I am an outsider.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the outsider wound, it's the I'm different and don't belong. Sometimes they were the goth kids when they were in high school. They're the self-proclaimed introverts, right? They can only people so much before they can't do any more peopling. If their friends don't include them on a text message or to go out to dinner, they are fatally hurt. I mean, it is like a knife to their chest. They're going to ghost you for a week and a half, maybe 3 years because you left them out of something. And so in partnerships, what I'll find is we'll have an extroverted husband or an extroverted wife, right, with the I am an outsider spouse, and then they'll go to a dinner party. And the extroverted spouse is running around just yapping it up, gabbing with everybody. And the outsider is just so upset. Like, how could you leave me alone in this corner? I know nobody here. I'm all by myself. I don't fit in. And then it starts a fight in the car on the way home. And so these are the ways the primal wounds play out. If we have a not good enough or the inadequate primal wound, you walk through the door and the wife says, you didn't this, you didn't that. He's already just worked the whole day and he's like, nothing's ever enough for you. Right? Now you want me to do all these things too. Nothing's ever enough. And we see a lot of perfectionism in the good enough primal wound. So the incapables are perfectionists as well. But what's really fascinating about it is that they will, because they don't feel smart enough, they will spend so much time researching before they get started. So they're often called procrastinators or lazy. And it's not that they're lazy at all. It's that they're really just learning everything there is to learn before they move forward with any of it. So it's like wife will say to husband, hey, could you get some new insurance for the car? Well, he's got to research every possible insurance option before he gets new insurance for the car. So 3 weeks go by and she's like, we still don't have insurance on that new car. Well, I'm still researching. You're just lazy. You just don't want to help me out. Right. And then they're fighting. And so these are the ways in which the primal wounds engage in our relationships, but they also happen at work with our boss. They happen with our kids. They happen in all the big decisions that we make. I can tell you that some of the biggest snafus I've made, I didn't trust my judgment. And that's one of the pre-activations for my primal wound. And I kick myself in the butt every time. So, yeah.
Do you believe everyone fits into one of the 7 categories?
Yes. My doctoral research started in Ainsworth and Bowlby's attachment work, which is, about secure base, anxious avoidance, things like that. And then also is inclusive of Eric Berne's work, which is parts of self for transactional analysis, we call it in psychology. And, there's really no way to go through the world without having what I call a hot stove moment, because we're in relationship the minute we walk out our front door. And so, you have this hot stove and you touch it and it burns you, and you have a physical emergency response to it. And you either learn how to now work with that hot stove, how to be careful and see if it's hot before you touch it or grab a pan, or you never cook on a stove again and you microwave food from then on out, right? So, and this is how the primal wounds work. We have an emotional emergency response. It's a psychological, physiological response in our limbic system to something that has happened in a relationship.
Now, how do you equate these 7 primal wounds to how do they act out in, let's say, victimhood?
Well, you can get stuck in those pre-activations, that ticker tape. And this is definitely what I see. So people will like the woe is me mindset rather than tapping into that grit and resiliency that we talked about earlier. And they'll stay in that space. And we have something in psychology called confirmation bias. So you'll
One of my favorite topics.
Well, yes, it's fascinating.
I've written about that a lot.
Oh, I love it. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Continued influence effect and confirmation bias are 2 of my favorites.
Absolutely. Yes. So you have the knowledge and the backstory. So the confirmation bias, you'll seek it out, right? So you'll look for being a disappointment. You'll look for being unchosen. You will look for whatever it is you're telling yourself you're powerless or you're undeserving. Undeservers are famous for starting nonprofits. They will say yes to absolutely everything so they can feel like they deserve to be just in the world, really, and among a group of people or whatever. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do that. And then they have resentments, right? So because they've taken on too much. And then their narrative, I see this all the time in the work that I do. Their narrative is, well, everybody just needs something from me. I just don't have any time for myself. I'm like, that's what you're convincing yourself, because that's your primal wound. But we can work on that. We can actually shift the way that you're looking at that and help you find more empowerment over your life.
You're a tough cookie. You grew up in a environment that forced you to learn resilience. Where do you think being confrontational fits with someone who, let's say, falls into one of your 7 primal categories, is kind of in that, well, this is just what's happening to me state of mind? How do you go about confronting that?
It's fascinating, because as I've been doing this for 15 years, and as my career has progressed, I've really gotten to the point where I've realized I'm not for everybody. And I will blankly say that, like, hey, if you're not ready to step out of that woe is me mindset, I'm probably not the person for you. And there is definitely a therapist that will love to sit there with you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to poke and prod you a little bit to come out of that space and elevate your life. And so I've realized people have to be ready to go along for that journey, because it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, and it hurts to look at kind of the ways that you've kept yourself where you are. And that means that I'm not necessarily the therapist for everybody, because I try to meet people where they're at.
And how much of your work involves backwinding? To try to, I mean, obviously you have to identify the kind of personality you think the person's falling into, versus going forward and more, cognitive. Let's give you some tools to work with this. So when this is triggered or that, pops into your head, you can move forward positively.
So one of the greatest things about the Primal Wound framework is that I have an entire reset system. So we have, a pause moment, we have a reframe moment, we have an identify moment, what part of yourself is activated. Because what I'll see a lot is that people, so once my clients have their aha moment, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the primal wound. I give them a tool called the story I'm telling myself. So what they do is whenever they're feeling activated, I have them go underneath it and say, the story I'm telling myself is blank, whatever it is. I'm not good enough. I'm not seen. I wasn't chosen, whatever it is, fill it in. And from there, what part of yourself is activated? And this is where Eric Burns' work, it's really important because we will revert to a part of self. So I have a child responder that gets real teary or temper tantrumy. We have a teen responder. That's your justice warrior. It's the one that's rolling the eyes or stomping out, and then we have the parent responder who's very judgmental, very critical, very ruminating, will sit and spin. And this is really where I feel that the framework is so fantastic because it gives you actually a guideline. So if you're stuck in a rumination mindset, you can identify that this is your parent responder, then you can step outside of it by having tools that fit that part of self, right?
Does the child, teenager, and parent responder vary based on
Primal wound.
the primal wound?
No, within each primal wound, you will bounce to all three parts of self.
Why do you say parents are judgmental?
It's you should have known better. You knew better than to do that. You knew better than to get into that relationship or to take that.
Did you grow up with that?
Because
I think that would be a bad universal claim about all parents.
Well, it's the parent mindset. So it's not necessarily that your parents were like that. It's that your internal responder or narrative will get judgmental or critical. Children don't necessarily have that part of self. And this is where Burns' work in transactional analysis identified it's actual parts of the brain that store memory. And then we go into that part of brain and respond from that part of self. So it's actually really fascinating work. But what I'll find is, how people say they need comfort food?
Yeah.
That's the responder. So that's the teen responder that wants to go get that type of candy that you ate when you were 13, or your child responder that loves that macaroni and cheese or the Cheerios with, a big bowl of milk or whatever. And so when you identify the part of self that you're bouncing into during an activation is actually one of the fastest ways to reset your brain.
You've used the word activation a few times. How do you define activation when it comes to your theory of the 7 primal wounds?
So it's the hot stove moment where we actually revert to the limbic system or to the amygdala, and we're not thinking from rational thought. So we're basically in an automatic mode. And I tell my clients, look, if a fire's coming through the window, we're not going to sit and calmly talk. I'm probably going to throw you out the window so I have a safe landing, right? Like I am out for myself. There is no team involved. It's survival 101. And when we have some people call it a trigger. I call it an activation. I just like the word a little better.
It sounds like a word that a pilot would use.
Right. There you go. Right. We have connective
That's why I thought it was worth discussing.
Yeah. So when the activation happens, the big thing, pre-activation time, we still have a little bit of rational thought involved. So we're still processing with some rational mindset. But when we go to the full-blown activation, that's it. And this is what I see happens with couples when things get toxic or they get nasty or they get bad, right? They'll use that kind of language with me. And they've gone from any kind of rational thought to single self mindset. Survival mode. So they're no longer engaged with one another. And where that really was important in the work that I was doing with couples is because that's actually where we pull out a knife or we pull out a shield. And you can imagine it's very hard to be intimate with someone that you're constantly knifing or shielding.
Yep.
So that activation moment, if a couple does not repair, then it's a wound. It's a primal wound in that moment, and it sticks in your brain. And then the next time I can detect 11 million bits of information a second. And so when I start to see you do the thing that's going to wound me, I'm already in defense mode. Now I'm protecting myself. And you start adding those up and stacking them on. Now the intimacy's gone. Now you have a sexless marriage, right? And so now you're roommates. Now you're just raising the kids together, doing the thing, and there's no intimacy because we can't be intimate with someone that's constantly wounding us. It's unsafe.
How, if we were, you were talking about the zodiac for a second. You weren't talking about it, but if we were, you see astrologers say, oh, well, Pisces belong with Cancers and,
Aries and
Cancers
Sag.
and Cancers and Aries and Sagittarius. Yeah. Exactly. So you can go on and on. Have you come up with any framework for patterns for
what's funny?
Because you work with couples. So I'm wondering if you've said, well, this is interesting.
Yes.
You're a this and you're a this. And these patterns seem to work a little better together.
Yes, I actually have. And so this is definitely going to be the next phase of my research and where I take this for sure, because I definitely am seeing things play out this way. There's also some really fascinating stuff that I'm seeing with narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder and what those primal wounds tend to look like and what they tend to be, and how they interact in relationships as well. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff playing out that way. It's really fascinating when I get two of the same primal wounders together. That doesn't happen very often, but I have a client right now, active client, that I'm like, wow, this is a hot mess. You guys are a hot mess, but we're working through it because they so quickly go. And one of them grabs the parent responder more often, and one of them grabs the child. And you can imagine intimacy does not exist.
Same, but you're hitting different levels because of different emotional levels of almost a maturity. Or, well, I don't know.
That's exactly right.
I know children that can be pretty mature versus adults, so it could go.
Yes, but no, you're exactly right. And, she'll say, I don't understand why he just can't blank, why I have to. And he's like, quit talking to me like you're my mother. Right? And they're engaged in that dynamic all the time. And they go there so fast. I mean, it's just instant when they're activated. And they're definitely struggling intimately because mom and 5-year-old is what's showing up in this relationship all the time. So it's really interesting stuff.
You use the word narcissistic personality, and you could spend an hour on social media.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere.
Yep.
I mean, everyone's going to label everyone something. And I personally find a lot of the labels disturbing, personally.
I totally agree.
Because I think they either give someone an excuse
to stay in victimhood.
And the other person the excuse. Exactly. So one is, well, that's him or her, and then you can play your role. So what
I see often, narcissistic personality disorder as classified by the DSM-5, right? Like if we were to look at it from the psychological lens, I agree. Toss out the labels.
There's not many.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of selfish people.
Right.
There are a lot of annoying people. There are a lot of people more willing to say what they want than not. And a lot of people who aren't willing to say what they want. There are willing people who are verbally loose with their lips,
What I see
doesn't make everyone a narcissist.
So I say it's an emotional immaturity. It's typically an I am damaged primal wounder or an incapable primal wounder. Again, my research is not fully developed on this yet, but this is what I'm trending in terms of what
you're saying is very interesting. So keep going.
And then their maladaptive response to that primal wound is hyper control of others, manipulation, right? And these are tactics that they have learned as part of that hot stove survival. And so it can be really a mess if we have a damaged with an insignificant or a powerless with an incapable, right? Like when you start to see, like you were talking about the two getting together, if I have a powerless wounder with an incapable wounder, then it gets real toxic very fast.
Well, you just used my other least favorite word.
Toxic.
No, because I like to say to people, listen, instead of calling everybody toxic, can't we just say oil and water don't mix?
Right.
And, nobody has to like me.
Yeah.
I have to like me.
Right.
That's my number one thing. I have to like me. You don't have to like me. But let's all try to have a conversation, and we can agree that we disagree. And if we agree we disagree on enough, well, maybe we should just go our separate ways, because we're just not going to find that groove that makes us that intimate love connection.
I love that. And an example that I use with my clients is I say, you can look outside and say the sky is white. I can look outside and say the sky is gray. You can look outside and say the sky is blue. And the bottom line is we're all right. That is our perception of our world. And where we get into problems is when I try to change your mind about that. That's when things get toxic, right? So what we need to do instead is figure out, why do you feel that way? I'm really curious. Why do you see the sky as white? I definitely see it as gray. So I'm really curious of your perspective. I'm not going to try to change your mind, but if we have to go on the 5 o'clock news and tell everybody what color the sky is, we're going to have to find something we agree on. Maybe we agree it's not raining. Maybe we agree there's no sun today, right? Like, so we're looking for, and to move out of toxic land, we're looking for where we agree, and we're not trying to change our partner's mind or whoever we're in relationship with, their mind. We're simply just trying to get curious about their perspective. And couples suck at this, right? Like you would never go into Starbucks and ask the barista, how's your day? And they would say, oh, it's terrible. And you'd be like, okay, well, let me tell you about my day. You would be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that, right? We would affirm, we would acknowledge, we would validate, and we might not agree with them, but we can at least hold space to validate them. And we don't do that with each other. And that's how things get so toxic so fast.
Well, I'm always amazed with people that are in business that tell me I'm a great negotiator. I'm a great negotiator. I negotiate all day long. Great. So why's your marriage falling apart? You know, apparently there's some gaps in that negotiation ability.
Yeah, right.
So let's look at those.
Yeah, right. That's fantastic. Yep, I love that.
You know, and it's really funny because it is a recurring theme. You know, we know the things we're good at, and often we think we're really good at work in different areas. But when it translates into those more intimate moments, the most important ones, we don't want to ask for what we want. And as you're breaking it down into personalities, would you say there are people that are more likely to ask what they want and less likely and more likely to just, oh, you don't even notice what I want, which is the worst of them all.
Yeah. And the undeservers and the powerless wounders and the outsiders are really terrible at voicing their opinion. And the others will voice their opinion and then they'll regret it. So they'll over voice their opinion and it's, oh, I probably shouldn't have spoken up. Although I will say, you know, I think that upbringing does tie into that, right? Like be not, what is it, seen and not heard or whatever, you know, those sorts of narratives that we carry throughout as well. So I think environment does play into it as well. But it's fascinating when you learn your primal wound and you start to see all the ways it trickles out in your life and how you show up or don't show up because of that ticker tape or the pre-activations that are constantly running.
What would you say to someone who you've identified their primal wound? You're pointing out their behaviors, but they keep going back to that hot spot in their youth, for example, or whatever it is, using your words.
Yeah.
How do you say, you know what? Time to get present.
You know, it's the P is pause. And I think that is the hardest thing to do because the activations happen so fast. And so I feel like more often than not, what I'll see is someone will shoot off that nasty text so fast. You know, they'll do something so quickly in protection. And if you could tattoo this on your inner arm and look down, you would go, the story I'm telling myself is that, you know, I'm damaged, I'm unlovable. And then you can take that pause. And then you can do all the rest of the steps. And I have clients that won't move out of it. They'll never even get to the pause. Some of them are so protected and guarded of their child that they'll stay in a parent responder. They won't even get to like a teary part where they can even recognize that they're sad about the way that they're feeling, right? They're just so hard on themselves. So that is all part of it. And there are people that will stay stuck in the immediate lash out response or the immediate withdraw response. It takes a level of emotional maturity and desire to be able to step out of it.
I'm envisioning your future jewelry line.
Okay.
As we're speaking. So you take the complete opposite of, you know, I'm unworthy. I am worthy.
Yes. And get it
make
a bracelet.
Those bracelets.
Yes.
Even if they're rubber, I bet they'd be bestsellers.
Exactly. The primal wound bracelet.
Get your primal wound bracelet.
Yeah. There it is, right there.
There it is. No. You
flip the script.
You got that feeling? Pause. Look at your wrist. Take a breath.
Take a breath. The story I'm telling myself is, oh, that's right. I am worthy.
Yeah.
I am worthy of saying no right now because I need this time for myself and I don't have to apologize about it. I can simply say thank you for understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you flip the primal wounds, can you do it that way?
They become a superpower.
So it can be, it's kind of like a duality. Instead of I'm unworthy, I am worthy. Instead of I am
undeserving,
I am deserving
of this raise, of this promotion. It absolutely becomes a superpower. My primal wound is I am insignificant. And so I run around the planet trying to make myself feel significant, right? I'll go do a 7,000 nautical mile book tour to prove to myself that I'm significant. So the journey doesn't end. And that's why this is called the Wounds to Wings book tour, because it's really about taking my own wound and turning it into a superpower, something that's going to have positive change for other people, right? So it starts as I'm insignificant, I better do something significant. But then if you find the deep internal positive motivation, then you can actually turn it into something that's going to help a lot of other people, something that's going to help yourself, something that's going to elevate your life, right? You can tweak the wound to actually work for you and not against you.
You know, I love that you just said that, because I've always believed that those things that you can either go through your whole life framing them as, woe is me, I'm just screwed, my parents did this to me, life did this to me, or you can flip it into another direction. And I remember having the first light switch moment. I was getting my hair dyed some horrific color back in the 80s when I had every horrific color, and which is why it's silver now. But I was in a salon and I remember reading Rolling Stone magazine, and it was Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics. And they were being interviewed by, could have been Dave Marsh or Pete Travers, whoever was writing for them at the time. And they said, you guys really didn't make it till you were kind of old as far as rock and roll goes. It's not like they made it when they were 18 or 20, when all these different punk bands and new wave bands were making it. They were closer to 30-ish.
Yeah.
And he said to him, what kept you going? And he said, low self-esteem. He said, I had to prove it. To the world. I had to, and the only way, if I could prove it to the world, I could prove it to myself. And I remember thinking, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I am so glad.
Yeah.
It's taken a long time for my hair coloring set.
Right.
It was this aha moment of not just acknowledging the challenges in life, but owning them as a benefit and embracing it as the oomph, the power, I'm going to get up on that stage and rock it.
The hold my beer moment.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly it. And so, as a kid growing up in the trailer in the woods, right? I don't matter. You're nothing. And then it was, no, I don't think I'm going to settle for that. Right. But it wasn't until the Primal Wound framework that I put it all together and realized I was doing the work. I just didn't know I was doing the work. Yeah. I was figuring out how to cook on a hot stove and not get burned. Right.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's very fascinating to me how you verbalized it and created the different categories, and within the categories, the parent, teen, and child.
Yes.
Because it takes it a step deeper.
Yeah.
Because you could have one personality trait, and we can all imagine when you look and you want to say to the other person, you're acting like my mother, or don't, what are you, a teenager who can't control their emotions, or a 5-year-old who just wants, like, come on.
Yep.
So I could see, there's obviously we're humans, we're incredibly complex, and no two of us are alike. So the constant thing is figuring out how to negotiate and being willing to say, you know what, this is important enough to me that I don't want to be right. I want the relationship. I don't need to be right. I need the relationship, or I want the relationship. So it's that choice.
Well, and couples really love it when they figure out the primal responders, which is, child, teen, and parent, because then they can actually get involved in the repair. So I'll often have a husband say, I tried to give her a hug. She didn't want me to touch her. I'm like, right, because she's activated in her teenager. She's rolling her eyes and stomping out of the bedroom and slamming the door. She doesn't want you hugging her, right? Or then I'll have a woman say, well, all I needed was a hug and he wouldn't touch me. She was activated in her child and he didn't know. He's like, I don't know what to do. I'm not. So when they start to figure it out, it becomes so much better. And I really empower individuals, repair yourself, right?
Yes.
Have that playlist that you throw on from when you were a kid or a teenager or now, or go treat yourself to that fancy pair of shoes because your parent is super activated, right? Like when you start to realize you can actually handle the repair yourself, and then eventually you can invite your partner in on it or your best friend or whatever. And it works out really beautifully.
You hit on, to me, the most important. I mean, you've raised so many really important points during this discussion, but it's that look at yourself. I always go back to the golden rule.
The man in the mirror.
The man in the mirror,
Yeah.
that you have to love yourself before you can start loving, as I would have loved you,
Yes.
You've got to look at yourself really closely and say, before I start, or there, like in Alcoholics Anonymous literature, which I have always loved, there's so many good
great
expressions.
stuff in
If
there.
you're pointing a finger at somebody, there's 4 pointing back at you.
Yes.
Don't compare your insides to other people's outsides. There's just so many good things that if we could all just take that beat, that pause to look and say, well, where am I coming from with this? Why is that person pissing me off right now? Why can't I just let them be them and me go take a walk around the block?
Yes. I always tell people it's called insight, not outsight, for a reason.
That's a good line.
Yeah. You got to look inside.
That could have been your second book title.
There we go. It's funny because a good friend of mine, longtime friend, he said, your next book is going to be called "It's What You Do Next." It's not in it's what you do next that matters most.
I think there's huge truth in that because, I started off in private practice, just working with individuals. Then by waves and how things happened, I ended up working in a venture capital firm and then working with CEOs of publicly traded companies and managing the message of the companies.
Yes.
But it also became very personal because maybe that CEO had to present to a board and then, or you get to know someone and you find out the problems they're having at home.
Yep.
It just happens. Things
connected.
unfold. But the insight and getting back to yourself first. The first rule of crisis management is take that beat, look at this as a different situation that's never happened before.
Yeah. And then it's what you do next.
Exactly.
That matters the most.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I say to our kids all the time, in fact, I learned it from my younger brother who had his challenges and, he was testing the limits of the world.
Damaged.
Yeah. There wasn't a challenge he wasn't going to try from everything, the motor scooter in the sump, one thing after
I would
another.
put money on the damaged wounder, but anyway, go on.
And he would say, I make a lot of mistakes, but I try not to make the same one twice.
There you go.
And there's so much wisdom in that.
Yes, there is.
Because it's that response.
Yep.
And, it's what I've said to our kids over the years. Listen, you're going to screw up. I screw up. We all screw up. People make mistakes. How are you going to recover? How are you going to say sorry if you should say sorry? And say it really sincerely.
Yeah.
Not just sorry,
Right.
or throw that sorry and walk out the room because you
Right.
had to say it,
Right.
like give it some substance.
Right. When my clients say that, when they say, well, I'm sorry this, I said, no, back it up. Why are you sorry? I don't know, because she's just ticked off. Okay, well, then that's not a sorry. You're not sorry about anything. You're sorry that you're in the situation and fighting, but you're not sorry about what just happened. Let's toss that out and come up with something else, right? And I like to teach my clients to apologize for their part because it's much easier to do that like authentically than it is to just toss out the I'm sorry.
And it's interesting you point out for your part, with whether it's clients or kids that are navigating their 20s or with my husband, or any relationship I'm in. I always try to step back and say, okay.
What's my part?
No, right. What's my part? there are very rarely times when someone is 100% wrong.
Right.
Okay. We've seen this recently in the news. You kill someone, you're 100% wrong. Period. The end of story. I will never negotiate that with anyone.
Yeah.
Because there's a point you can discuss things. You can turn the page. You can walk away. You can say they should be arrested. That's different than, acting out on that violence.
Yeah.
And it's funny when somebody has to step back and say, or not funny, it's the responses can be funny when you can get someone to really look and say, well, I just walked in the room. I'm like, well, you got to do a little better than that.
Yeah. There was more there. Come on now. Let's
when
go a little deeper.
When you walked into the room, how were you stomping your feet?
Right.
What did your facial expression look like?
That's right. Absolutely. I just walked in the room and she was ticked off.
Yeah.
Actually, she picked up on those 11 million bits of data that you were dumping, including that glare or the eye roll or whatever. Yeah, it's fascinating. And, in the my part, it also empowers people to not have to change their partner's experience of their wound, right? So, yeah, that sucks that you're activated and not feeling good enough. I didn't do that. However, my part might be such and such, blank and blank. And then you can really start to separate, the ways in which we show up. And that's when you can actually become a team. And gosh, that's got to feel tough to feel like that.
Yes.
Just because somebody told you to back off the car in front of you, you feel not good enough. Shoot, that's tough to go through life. Because if somebody tells me to back off the car in front of them, it doesn't bother me a bit, right? Like
that is such a good example.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
really
a lot of people will relate to that, because it's so simple and it's so visual. And I don't know any couple that doesn't somehow say he drives like a maniac or she drives like a maniac or she never should have gotten her license or he thinks he's Verstappen.
Right. I'm looking at my partner off screen because we've had this activation moment on the way to the airport.
Yeah, it happens.
Yep, it happens.
It happens. The other one that cracked me up, I've said this on another podcast, but David Coverdale from Whitesnake posts some very hilarious memes sometimes.
Really? Huh. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah. I don't even know how he ended up in my feed, but some just downright, my husband will say, what are you laughing about? I'm like, oh my gosh, he posted another one. But one was a man and a woman in a car. And there's a thought bubble over the woman's
The brain bubble.
head.
I have that in my book. Yes.
And it says, I realized he was right 99% of the time, but I just didn't like his tone of voice.
This is literally the crux of the Primal Wound book. This is it right here. The brain bubble, and then the tone of voice is the parent responder usually. So yeah, you nailed it in a meme. There it is.
We'll give David credit.
Yeah, we'll give David credit for that one.
Or wherever he's
I'm going to have to go grab that. And
it's very funny.
Yeah.
Because, it's amazing to me how, whenever someone will relay a situation to me.
Yeah.
They're having a crisis at home or at work or in any situation. And they'll relay it and they'll always say, well, I said to them, why do you have to do that?
Right.
Was that really necessary? And I'm like, did you actually use that tone of voice?
Is that the way you did it?
Yeah. Is that the way?
Yeah.
I don't question those are the words you use.
Right.
But was that the tone?
Yep.
Was that your facial expression?
Yeah.
Were the eyebrows going up and down? Could you do that great Vivian Lee where one eyebrow goes up and the other doesn't? Did you give him some of this or the neck?
Yeah.
I can't do the neck. I want to practice the neck. Yeah. But can you do the neck?
I don't know how they
move the neck to the side. I want to do that one day.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it either, but
I've tried. It's not working.
The mean girl move. Yeah.
Just for the kicks of it, to be able to pull that out sometime. That one I got from my daughter, though.
Yeah. I don't even know how they do it. It's so fast.
But all that, the body language, that comes into a conversation that can either elevate it,
yep,
or make it, detonate
down the drain
fast.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's the part that, at least with the reset program that I have, you get clued into all of those little things that start in your body before your brain's considering anything. So it's the jaw clenching or that, you feel it as a response because of their nonverbal cues, which is I think 78% of all communication, right? So when your body is detecting that, you're already going into that pre-activation. And it just takes someone walking through the door with the look and you're on guard, and it's that quick. And so that's where I really teach my clients it's important to slow it down. And, I took a Coast Guard class once on boating. And it's, I don't know, some 40-page book and all these different quiz questions. And the only two things that I took away from that were nothing bad happens slow and red right returning.
Yes. The two most important things. Slow down.
Yeah.
Keep
nothing
the
bad
no wake.
Happens slow, right? So from there, you're bringing a boat into the dock. You do it slowly and you're going to have a much better response. And so part of the Primal Wound book includes talk tactics, which is like, hey, if you can crisscross applesauce, sit on the floor. If your knees can be touching one another, you're in a non-defensive, non-posturing position. So you're more likely to be able to engage in conversation. If you feel yourself having to start to stand up, right, that is a clue that you are becoming activated because you're starting to need to get away from the situation. If you're pulling your hand off your partner when you're talking calmly and suddenly I don't want to be touching you, so now it's defensive posturing position. You're moving away. Those are clues that your body is telling you this is unsafe. And so when you learn these kind of quick, easy ways to be in conversation, setting meeting time limits, right? We can't have conversations drag out for 3 hours. It's just not healthy. All these little things just really elevate the conversation. They elevate the relationship and they help people get from point A to point B on topics that they've maybe completely avoided or have been stonewalling one another on for years.
You hit on so many really excellent points in this book. We're talking about 7 Primal Wounds, your new book. And you hit on so many things because you're not just identifying, you're giving a framework to work with. And that alone should make it a bestseller. You can't
put it into practice,
but
right?
That's not necessarily how all books go.
True. Very true.
I have thousands of books. I've literally read thousands of books. And it's always interesting to me that some people are really good at pointing it out. They're good at telling people how you can recognize it in yourself or other people.
Right.
But not necessarily, what are you going to do when you encounter it in yourself? What are you going to do when you encounter it in another? How can you take that breath, take that beat,
the badump pause and do something with it because it's what you do next that matters the most, right? And I think that this was the big thing is, what couples that I work with and clients that I work with, I mean, I have people that are even entering the dating world or looking for a new job. We apply the primal wounding to everything. When they first learn the wound, they have the aha moment of, oh yeah. And then they're like, well, I'm like, don't worry. I got you, boo. We have a plan. And once they learn, I teach them how to communicate differently using the framework of their wound as part of the language because otherwise they lose their voice. They're afraid to speak up. So we actually have like really graceful language that they use with their wound specifically in mind. And so it really becomes really a powerful tool for all decision-making in all relationships. But I had a client tell me, I absolutely love this client. And she said, because I always say we're aiming for progress, not perfection. And she said, I'm done with that. And I said, okay. She said, my dad told me something that I like better. I'm like, okay, you tell me what it is. She said, aim for excellence. Because excellence is something that you can continue to work toward. And I liked that better.
That's a really good visual.
Yeah, because progress is kind of like the path, but excellence is striving for, but you can have some flexibility within it. And I like that a lot. So aiming for excellence. I'm like, that's good. We'll do that. We will aim for excellence.
It's going to be tough to top that, but we're down to like our last 2 or so minutes of this show. It always goes way too fast, and I have really enjoyed this conversation. What would be your words for hope for someone who's struggling with themselves or a relationship? obviously they should start with reading your book because it would help give them a roadmap. But what would be your oomph? Like, you can do this, and here's why and how and why it's worth it.
I simply tell people, you're not broken.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually working very well.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to harness it in a little bit different of a way. And I think that is something so special because so many people feel like they're broken, like there's just something wrong with me. No, you're working actually excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain is doing everything it is meant to do to keep you alive and protect you. Mm-hmm. And we can harness all of that goodness into something really amazing. So that's my 2 bits.
That's a real good 2 bit. That is very good because I couldn't agree with you more.
You're not broken.
You're not broken.
Yeah.
You know, you just need to get your coping mechanisms of how you can best navigate the world because
that's right. The I am damagers, they love to get addicted. They love to do crazy things. They,
Mm-hmm.
And then they affirm that belief that I'm just unlovable. I'm damaged. I'm, a menace to society.
Mm-hmm.
But when they realize that they're not broken, that's just their maladaptive choices, then we can make different choices. They just need a little bracelet.
There you go, which I'm telling
The
you,
jewelry line.
you could do the super simple rubber ones.
Yeah, I love it.
The
Live Strong, but the Primal Wounds.
Exactly.
There we go.
Primal Wounds on one side or on the inside or the back, and then your message on the front.
Love it.
I mean, you could have those to market in a week.
Yes, I think I will.
And I have no doubt people would wear them.
Probably. Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love talking with people that get psychology. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh my gosh, this was a pleasure. I've been speaking with Dr. Michaela Johnson. She is the author of 7 Primal Wounds. I highly recommend you get this book. There will be all kinds of links so you can follow her on social media, get onto her website, learn more about what she's doing. And thank you.
Absolutely.
This was a great
Thank
conversation.
You so
I enjoyed
much.
it.
I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm Dian Griesel. This is the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast. We've been recording in iconic Manhattan Center on West 34th Street in New York City. And I hope you hit subscribe. And again, definitely check below in the copy so you can find all kinds of links to learn more about what we've been discussing. And share this because there's such good content here. It can only make the world better. And isn't that what we'd all like to do? Thank you.